Welcome. This is Lesson 3.3, all about something we call academic form. We're going to learn how to read your own learning signals in real time. The focus here isn't just on what you know, but really on how you work while you're learning.
So, have you ever heard a teacher say things like, stay focused or use your time well? I'm sure you have. Well, those phrases and others like show your work all point to one core idea in this course.
And that big idea is what we call academic form. So what is it? Simply put, it's how you work while you're learning. It's your pace, the steps you're taking, your level of focus, and even how you react when things start to get tough. It also includes your workspace, the actual environment you're in.
And you know, that last part about your workspace is so important. Think about it. Trying to do really focused work while you're lying on the couch, laptop kind of teetering on your knees, that's a whole different world from working at a clear desk with all your stuff laid out. One of those spaces is built for focus, and the other one? It's pretty much built for distraction.
Okay, let's take a second to make this idea stick. If you look at your Lesson 3.3 workbook page, right up at the top, there's a spot to define academic form. I really want you to try putting this in your own words. You could say something simple like, it's how I work when I learn, my speed, my focus, and where I'm sitting. Go ahead and pause here and take a moment to write that down.
All right, now let's break academic form down into two main patterns you can actually see in the moment. We'll call them strong form and collapse form. Just being able to recognize these is the very first step to making a positive change.
Okay, so let's look at these two patterns. First, there's strong academic form. This is when your habits and your environment are actually working for you, even when the work itself is a real challenge. Your pace feels steady, it's intentional, you can follow the directions, your workspace is helping you concentrate. Now, collapsed form is the exact opposite. It's when those good learning habits just start to fall apart. And this can look like a lot of different things. Maybe you start rushing or skipping steps, or you get that feeling of rereading the same sentence over and over again and it just won't sink in.
So to make this really personal, let's go back to your workbook page. You'll see two spots to list your own signs for strong form and for collapsed form. This is all about what you notice in yourself. For strong form, you might write something like, my phone is in another room. And for collapsed form, maybe it's, I'm just scrolling on my phone when I should be doing homework. Go ahead and pause right here to jot down a few ideas for both.
Next up, let's talk about struggle. So many of us think that if we're struggling, it means we're failing. But that's not really true. It turns out there are two very different kinds of struggle.
And this is such an important difference to understand. Let's start with productive struggle. This is the good kind. It's the kind that actually builds learning. Yeah, it feels hard, but you have a strategy, you have a plan. You can feel yourself making progress, even if it's just a little. Your understanding is genuinely growing. On the other side, you have unproductive struggle. This is when you're putting in a ton of effort, but you're not really getting anywhere. It's that awful feeling of being stuck, just spinning your wheels. It doesn't build you up, it just drains your energy.
Let's pause for a second to really lock this in. On your workbook page, find the section to define both types of struggle. For productive struggle, maybe you could write something like, it's difficult, but I have a plan and I'm learning from it. For unproductive struggle, maybe it's, it feels hard and I'm just going in circles. Feel free to pause here and write down your own definition. And all of this brings us to what might be the most important idea in this whole lesson, noticing when your academic form is slipping and noticing it early before you get totally frustrated or stuck.
You can think of it like an athlete's physical form. A basketball player or a runner doesn't wait until their technique has completely collapsed to make a change. No way. They are always watching for the earliest, smallest signals, a slight change in posture, a little loss of rhythm, and they make a tiny adjustment right away. Those small adjustments early on are what prevent the really big problems from happening later. Well, academic form is the exact same way. So what do you do when you notice your form starting to collapse? You catch yourself reading the same sentence for the third time, or you realize you've been bouncing between browser tabs for 5 minutes. The key is to see that signal not as a failure, but as a simple cue to make a small change.
And that change doesn't need to be some huge, dramatic thing. It can be super simple. Maybe you just get up and move to a better workspace, or you just consciously slow down and focus only on the very next tiny step. It could even be something like rewriting the directions in your own words, or just setting a timer for 5 minutes of focused work. These small moves can make all the difference.
So let's think about this one more time. On your workbook page, you'll see a question, why is it important to notice form early? Take a moment and try to answer that in your own words. You might write something like, "If I notice it early, I can make a small fix before I waste a bunch of time or just give up." Go ahead and pause here, think about it, and write down what you think.
Okay, now for the fun part. Let's apply all of this to a real moment from your own life. In the Apply It section of your workbook, we're going to walk through a specific example from your own experience.
So for step 1, I want you to think of a recent time you were learning something, like doing math homework or studying for a test. Then for step 2, use this checklist to be honest about what your academic form looked like. Were you rereading things without understanding? Were you rushing, zoning out? Just check any of the boxes that apply to that moment. Okay, so based on the boxes you checked, decide if your form in that moment was mostly strong, mixed, or collapsed. And remember, this isn't about judging yourself. It's just about learning to read your own signals a little better. Go ahead and take a few minutes now to complete steps 1 and 2.
All right, welcome back. Now let's look at step 3. Think about that moment. Was the struggle you were having productive or unproductive? Ask yourself, was I stuck, but at least moving forward? Or was I just spinning my wheels? Then, for step 4, just pick one form fix move from the list that you could use next time. The goal here is not to fix everything at once. Just pick one small, realistic change.
This could be a tiny action like slow down and just do the next small step, or it could be about changing your environment like moving to a better workspace. The goal is just to choose one move that actually feels doable for you and then write it down. Take a moment to pause here while you choose your move and finish that section.
Okay, the very last part of your workbook page is the Systems Model Quick Check. This is where we connect today's lesson back to those 5 learning states we've talked about. Think about it. When your form starts to collapse, which state do you usually find yourself sliding into? Do you start to drift and scroll on your phone, or do you go into overdrive and just work like crazy?
Figure out which state you tend to end up in, and then write down one signal that tells you it's happening. And finally, name one specific move that could help you get centered and stable again, instead of just pushing harder with bad form. Go ahead and pause here to finish up that quick check and the reflection at the bottom of the page.
So let's wrap this up. The big idea today is that academic form is all about how you work. We learned to spot the difference between strong and collapsed form, and between the productive struggle that helps you learn and the unproductive struggle that just drains you. And remember, your environment is a huge part of your form, and noticing these things early lets you make those small, smart adjustments that really work.
If you haven't quite finished, please take a little time to complete the Lesson 3.3 page in your workbook. Once you're done, you'll be all set for Lesson 3.4, where we're going to dive into a powerful, repeatable study process called the study cycle. Feel free to pause here to finish up, and we'll see you in the next explainer.